All right, get ready, because today we're diving deep into drug formulation and delivery.
Oh, this is a good one.
Right. It's like you swallow a pill and just kind of assume it just works, right?
Yeah, you don't think about all that goes into getting it to actually work.
But turns out getting that medicine from the lab, like a scientist's bench, all the way into your system so it can actually do something, it's way more complicated.
Way more. It's definitely not just like grinding something up and, throwing it in a capsule.
No, not at all.
It's pretty fascinating, actually.
So in this deep dive, we're going to uncover this hidden world of drug formulation and delivery.
Yes, we are.
And it really is this crucial step between that lab discovery and a treatment that you take that actually makes you better.
Yeah, I think of it kind of like, you can have the most talented musician in the world,
Okay.
but if they don't have the right instrument or their sound system isn't set up correctly.
They can't share their music.
Exactly, they can't share their music.
I love that analogy. So we have some sources for this deep dive. We have a textbook about pharmaceutical product development,
Okay.
and then we also have a chapter focusing specifically on pharmacokinetics.
Nice.
And I think what's interesting here is that both of them emphasize this one major goal that scientists have,
What's that?
which is getting that active ingredient, that essential drug molecule, to the right place in your body at the right concentration and for the right amount of time.
Right, and the scientists are trying to do this, right? And how they achieve it really depends on the delivery method.
Okay.
Like we all know pills, we know injections, but have you ever stopped to think why some medications come in one form versus the other?
I really haven't, actually.
Yeah, it turns out that the delivery method has a huge impact on how much of the drug actually gets into your system.
Okay.
And this is what's called bioavailability.
Bioavailability. So is that kind of why sometimes I feel like when I take a medication, it's like, is this thing even working?
Yes, that's exactly why. So think about it this way. When you swallow a pill, it has to survive a lot, right? It's got to survive your stomach acid, those digestive enzymes.
Yeah, your whole digestive system.
Exactly, before it can even be absorbed into your bloodstream. Whereas an injection kind of bypasses all of that, right? Delivers the drug directly into your circulation.
Oh, so it's more direct.
So with an intravenous injection, you're getting 100% bioavailability,
Wow.
meaning the entire dose is getting into your system.
That makes a lot of sense.
Now, needles aren't always the most practical or comfortable option, right?
Right. Yeah. Needles. Yeah. No thanks.
But oral medications, they win for convenience and patient ease for sure.
They do.
But they present challenges when it comes to formulation because of that whole complex journey through the digestive system.
Yeah. I can see how that would be tricky.
Yeah.
Well, the textbook actually highlighted a really interesting example of this.
Oh, what's that?
They were talking about an antifungal medication called grizofulvin.
Oh,
And scientists discovered that if they made the drug crystals super tiny, like ultramicrocrystalline is what they call it,
wow.
the absorption increased by 1.5 times.
Wow, that's a big difference.
I know, right?
That's huge.
So that means patients could take lower doses for the same effect.
And that could potentially mean minimizing those side effects.
Exactly.
Wow, so that just shows how powerful these little tweaks to a formulation can be.
That's wild. I never would have thought about that.
Yeah, it's just the tip of the iceberg, though.
Oh, no.
Remember, our bodies are amazingly efficient at getting rid of things they don't recognize.
They are. They are.
So that's where this concept of ADME comes in.
Okay, ADME, what is that?
It stands for absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion.
Okay, so it's like the 4 horsemen of drugs in your body.
Yeah, exactly. So these 4 processes, they determine the fate of any drug that enters your body.
Okay, let's break this down a little bit because ADME, it sounds like a pretty important concept.
It is.
So absorption, that's like the first step, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine a drug molecule as a tiny traveler, right?
Okay.
And it's on this mission to reach a specific destination in your body.
Okay.
Absorption is like getting through customs, how easily the drug gets from its point of entry, whether that's your stomach or a muscle, into your bloodstream.
Oh, so a pill has to go through customs at the digestive border,
Exactly.
whereas an injection gets a fast pass right into the country.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so we're through customs now. What?
Now we're talking distribution.
Right.
This is all about how the drug navigates the transportation system within your body. So your blood vessels, your tissues, your
Making
organs.
sure the drug doesn't take a wrong turn.
Exactly. And then comes metabolism. This is where things get even more interesting.
Uh,
Your body, particularly your liver, it's like this super efficient processing plant,
okay.
right? So it sees the drug as a foreign substance and starts breaking it down into these smaller inactive pieces.
So it's like our body's trying to detoxify.
Exactly.
Okay.
So those smaller pieces are called metabolites, and that brings us to excretion, that final stage,
Okay.
which is all about removing the drug, or really it's metabolites, from your body, mainly through your kidneys and urine.
So ADME, is it really like a complex obstacle course
Yes.
for these drugs? And scientists are trying to design formulations to help the drug navigate the course successfully.
You got it. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's where the ingenuity of the formulation scientists really comes in.
They're like the coaches.
Yes. They're using their understanding of ADME to enhance a drug's chances of reaching its target and actually producing the desired effect.
Wow, so it's really like a whole team effort.
It is. And one way they do that is by manipulating something, pretty simple is particle size.
Particle size. Okay, how does the size of a drug particle matter?
Well, think about it like this. If you're trying to dissolve like a sugar cube in water,
Okay.
it's going to dissolve a lot slower than a spoonful of granulated sugar.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and that's because the smaller particles, they have a much greater surface area exposed to the water.
So it dissolves quicker.
Exactly. So smaller drug particles dissolve faster, meaning they can get absorbed into the bloodstream more quickly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And a classic example of this is the heart medication digoxin.
Okay.
Its absorption can vary a lot depending on how finely it's milled.
So if the particles are too big, it might not get absorbed properly.
Exactly. You wouldn't get the full effect of the drug.
Wow. But particle size, that's just one thing, right?
It's just one piece of the puzzle, yeah.
So what else are these scientists doing?
They've got a whole arsenal of tricks.
Okay.
They're adding other ingredients called excipients.
Excipients.
These can do things like enhance solubility, protect the drug from degradation, or even control its release over time.
It's like a supporting cast.
Yeah.
For the drug.
Exactly. Working behind the scenes to make sure that drug delivers, a star performance.
I like that. Okay, so what are some examples of these excipients? What do they do?
Well, some of them, they act as buffers to help control the pH
The pH.
of the drug formulation. And this is really important for drugs that are taken orally
Okay.
because they need to withstand that acidic environment of the stomach.
Right. You don't want it to break down before it's even had a chance to work.
Exactly. And then some other excipients can act as coatings
Coatings. Okay.
that protect the drug from moisture or light, things like that.
Okay.
And some can even be designed to control the rate at which the drug is released.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so you can have extended release formulations.
That's cool. So much strategy goes into this.
There is.
It's not just about the active ingredient itself, it's all the other players on the team.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting because the science of formulation, it can actually be used to improve existing drugs.
To improve existing drugs.
Yeah, for example, scientists might tweak the formulation of a drug to enhance its absorption
Okay.
or maybe reduce side effects.
So they're like giving it a makeover
Yeah,
so it could perform better.
Yeah, and those formulation innovations can actually be patented,
Oh, wow.
which drives progress in medicine and provides patients with better treatment options.
Okay, well, this brings up something I've always wondered about.
That's it.
Generic drugs. How can we be sure that a generic drug works just as well as the brand name version?
That is a great question, and that's where bioequivalence studies come in.
Bioequivalence studies.
Yeah, they're designed to demonstrate that a generic drug performs similarly to the brand name drug
Okay.
in terms of its absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion.
Oh, so that whole ADME obstacle course.
Exactly, that whole obstacle course.
So it's not just about having the same active ingredient.
No.
It's about making sure it behaves the same way in the body
Exactly, you got it.
as the original drug.
Yeah, because even slight differences in, inactive ingredients or the way it's manufactured, that can impact the drug's performance.
I see. Okay.
So these bioequivalence studies, they rigorously compare the generic to the brand name
Yeah.
to make sure they are essentially interchangeable.
Okay, that's reassuring. That means patients can have access to affordable medications without having to compromise on quality
Right, exactly.
or effectiveness.
It really highlights how critical it is to understand formulation
Yeah.
and those ADME processes.
Now, speaking of ADME, you mentioned something earlier
Oh, yeah.
called the BCS.
Yeah, the BCS.
Yes.
What was that again? That's the biopharmaceutics classification system.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically a way scientists categorize drugs based on their solubility,
Solubility.
how well they dissolve, and permeability.
Permeability, okay.
How easily they cross those biological barriers, like cell membranes and things like that.
So are there different, like, classes of drugs based on these properties?
There are, yeah, but the most important thing to remember is the difference between highly soluble, highly permeable drugs and those that are not so good at one or both.
Okay, so tell me about the, I guess the superstars.
Superstars.
The ones that are both soluble and permeable.
Yeah, those are like the ideal drugs, the ones that dissolve easily and have no problem crossing those barriers.
Okay.
So in the BCS, we call those Class 1 drugs.
Class 1 drugs.
They're the superstars of drug absorption.
Okay, so for those drugs, it's a breeze to get into the bloodstream.
You could say that, yeah.
And this is where you said the BCS is relevant to generic drugs.
Yeah, so remember those bioequivalence studies we talked about?
Uh-huh.
Well, for these Class 1 drugs, scientists can often use a simpler test
Okay.
called a dissolution test.
Instead of doing the whole study with people.
Right, so instead of testing it in humans, they can just see how well it dissolves in a lab setting.
Okay.
And the FDA, they have specific guidelines for this.
Okay.
If the generic drug dissolves at the same rate and to the same extent as the brand name drug, it's considered bioequivalent.
Oh, wow.
And this is a huge win for getting affordable generics to market faster.
That's amazing. I never realized how these properties of a drug could have such a big impact on generic medications.
Yeah, it's a really interesting interplay of science and regulation, you know? It's really a testament to how much thought and effort goes into making sure that all these medications,
Right.
whether they're brand name or generic, are safe and effective for patients.
This whole deep dive is making me think about how, like, our bodies aren't just passive vessels, you know?
Right.
They're dynamic systems that are always changing
Yes.
and responding to different things.
Mhm.
So wouldn't that affect how a drug is absorbed and distributed?
That's a great point. You're absolutely right. Physiological factors or what's going on inside your body play a huge role in drug absorption.
So the same drug might behave differently in different people.
Exactly. Things like gastric emptying rate.
Gastric emptying rate. I bet.
Okay, so how quickly your stomach empties,
Okay.
intestinal transit time, even blood flow to the digestive tract, all those things can influence how a drug is absorbed.
It's like the drug is navigating a constantly changing landscape
Yeah, it is.
inside our bodies.
Yeah, and that landscape can look different for everybody.
And what about food?
Oh, yeah, food, that can be a major factor too.
Yeah, because I've definitely had the experience where, like, I need to take some medications on an empty stomach.
Right.
And some with food. Why is that?
Yeah, it all comes down to how those food components interact with the drug's absorption process.
Okay.
Sometimes food can enhance absorption, but in other cases, it can interfere with it.
Okay. Like what? Give me an example.
Well, let's talk about grapefruit juice.
Grapefruit juice. Okay.
It's notorious for interacting with certain medications.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it contains compounds that can inhibit these enzymes in the gut that are responsible for drug metabolism.
So it's not just a refreshing drink.
No.
It's like a disruptor
It can be.
of drug metabolism.
Yeah. So if the drug isn't metabolized as efficiently, you can end up with higher drug levels in your bloodstream.
So it's like amplifying the effect.
Exactly. So that's why it's so important to understand food-drug interactions.
Right, yeah.
Your healthcare providers need to be aware of these things so they can advise their patients.
It seems like all of this points to how individualized medicine is becoming.
Yes.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore.
It's not. You're absolutely right. We're moving towards personalized medicine, where treatments are tailored to your unique genetic makeup, your lifestyle, even your dietary habits.
So factors like, how quickly our stomachs empty or how well we metabolize certain drugs could influence the medications and dosages we're prescribed.
Absolutely. And as our understanding of all these individualized factors grows, we're going to see more targeted and effective drug therapies in the future.
Wow. I'm really seeing the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not just about the drug itself. It's about that whole journey through our body.
Yeah.
And how so many different factors can influence that.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. It is.
How much science goes into something as, seemingly simple as taking a pill or getting an injection.
Well, this deep dive has been eye-opening for me.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah, it really makes you think twice about those little pills we take, right?
It does, and it gets even more complicated when we start talking about these larger molecule drugs.
Okay.
Like like protein-based therapies, things like monoclonal antibodies.
Right. Those are becoming pretty important these days.
They are. They're used to treat a lot of different diseases.
They are.
But delivering these big, complex molecules, it's a whole different ballgame.
I bet.
It's like, imagine trying to ship a really fragile antique across the country.
Okay, I'm listening.
You gotta pack it really carefully,
Yeah,
right?
real.
That's kind of what it's like with these large molecule drugs. They need special care and handling.
Because they're so much bigger than those small molecule drugs we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. They can they can break down easily.
Yeah.
They're degraded by enzymes in the body, and they have a harder time getting through those cell barriers.
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, kind of. It's just not going to work without some creative solutions.
So what are scientists doing?
Well, that's where these innovative delivery systems come in,
Okay.
like nanoparticles and microspheres.
Nanoparticles and microspheres, those sound pretty fancy.
They are. So think of them as these tiny little protective capsules.
Okay.
They basically encapsulate the drug
Oh,
and shield it.
so it doesn't break down.
Exactly. They keep it safe from being broken down before it reaches its target.
So going back to your antique analogy, it's like giving it a custom-designed crate
Yes.
and like a team of expert movers to make sure it gets there in one piece.
Exactly. And these delivery systems, they're already being used for a lot of different things,
Like what?
like cancer treatments, vaccines. It's really changing how we give these powerful medications.
So it's getting really specific and customized.
It is. It's all about finding the perfect way to get those molecules where they need to go.
And I bet technology is playing a huge role in all of this.
It is. Technology is really transforming the field of drug delivery.
Yeah.
We're seeing so many advancements in 3D printing, microneedles. It's incredible.
Like 3D printing for medicine?
Yeah. So imagine your doctor prescribes you a medication, but instead of going to the pharmacy, they just put it right there in the office.
No way.
Tailored just for you.
So we could have personalized doses?
Exactly. And then there are microneedles.
Like krill needles. Okay.
These are tiny, painless needles that deliver drugs through the skin.
So no more painful injections.
It's definitely a lot less intimidating, which could help people take their meds as prescribed.
That's huge, especially for people who are afraid of needles.
Yeah, it could really make a difference.
It's amazing how far we've come with drug delivery.
It is.
From changing particle size to these high-tech delivery systems, it's really incredible.
It really shows you the ingenuity and dedication of these scientists who are working to improve people's health.
So next time we take any kind of medicine, we should remember all the amazing science that went into it.
Absolutely. It's not as simple as it seems.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a whole new perspective on the world of drug formulation and delivery.
Me too. It's a fascinating field.
And who knows what the future holds?
Yeah, there's so much more to discover.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, stay curious.
Cool.